we come on to chapter 8, called The Fourth Noble Truth, The Great Way. And the Pali for this reads, Idanko panabhikkhave dukkha-nirodha gamini patipada arya sachang ayameva aryo atangiko maggo seyaditang samaditi sama sankapo sama vacha sama kamanto sama ajivo sama vayamo sama sati sama samadhi. The translation of that reads, Bhikkhus, there is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is the noble eightfold path, namely, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This illumination portrays a mandala. If you've got the books circulating around, but this mandala that is depicted there. This illumination portrays a mandala, an image that can be used to concentrate and compose the mind for tranquility and reflection. It's based upon a Celtic stone in Scotland, which has 4 arcing motifs, which I have adapted here into 8. Actually, you can see that it's all just one line going around, so that what he's referring to is the white band, that is actually a single line that follows all the way through very cleverly. I don't know how many weeks it took him to work out how to do it, but the white line is a single line that forms the entirety of the mandala's shape. Actually, you can see that it's all just one line going around. Similarly, the Eightfold Path has 8 limbs, but it is only one path, not 8 paths going in different directions. You cannot isolate just any one aspect of it and call it the path, because it's the wholeness of it which is important. And the anga, atangika, so it's usually translated in English as eightfold. Anga also means a limb or an attribute. So that the eightfold, or also the 8 qualities or 8 attributes, the 8 constituent parts, as the anga represents that. The symbols within the mandala typify factors of the Eightfold Path. So in each of the sections there's a little symbol, a little motif, 8 of them dotted around in between the knots. The symbols within the mandala typify the factors of the Eightfold Path. Right view, samaditi, is the Bodhi leaf, representing awakening and enlightenment. Right intention, samasankappa, is the lotus flower, which, like aspiration, grows out of the earth of mundane existence towards the heavens. The third is right speech, samavacha, here symbolized by a star, a source of transmission of light across the vast spaces between us. It's a very nice image for speech. The fourth is right action, samakamanto, which is a hand, the open hand that holds nothing but is available for work in a selfless way. Right livelihood, samma ajivo, is the hand in a caring and protective gesture, one of nurturing oneself and others with livelihood. The 6th factor is right effort, samma vayamo, the vajra sword, that is, the sense of determination and ability to limit, define, and direct oneself. It has 4 aspects: to prevent the mind from being overwhelmed by ignorance, to cut away at wrong views and habits, to dig the soil for cultivation of what is good, and to maintain vigilance over the path. This supports and is supported by right mindfulness, samasati, shown as a flower to represent the blossoming of the mind's ability to know things as they are. The 8th factor is right collectedness, samadhi, here symbolized by the hand in meditation, mudra, supporting the flower, the pure mind. And that takes us back to right view, the purity that sees the way things are. So just the Eightfold Path itself is to sort of skim through it in this way with these very brief descriptions is quite appropriate in some ways, but also each one of these can warrant a great deal of attention. In the States, when I was living at Abhayagiri Monastery, we would have an Upasika day every other month, every 2 months, through the main part of the year. So from April to December, we'd have an Upasika day every other month. And I think it was like 3.5 or 4 years we spent going through Bhikkhu Bodhi's little book called The Noble Eightfold Path, and it really just goes through. It's just a quotation from the sutta and a little bit of a commentary. It's a very wonderful book of his. This is called The Noble Eightfold Path, and it took us 3.5 or 4 years just to get through that one little book. It's only about 50 or 60 pages, but in each Upasika day we would spend a couple of hours going through each section of the book, and even that, you felt, well, we're not really giving it full justice by any means. So these are very cursory or limited descriptions here. We've spoken quite a bit already about right view, samaditi, that came up in the earlier readings, and so I thought I'd talk a little bit more about right effort, samavayamo, particularly in its relationship to the reading was about, what we were talking about yesterday and earlier in terms of bhavatanha and vibhavatanha, the desire to become and the desire to get rid of. So this is a regular theme of mine over the last year or so, and I was talking about it in the meditation instruction at the beginning of this retreat. So those of you who are sitting in on the morning reflections will have heard me speaking about this recently, but it's a kind of a simple point, but a very central point that it takes a bit of hammering to bring it home. So when we are talking about guiding our practice based on right view, then the effort that is being made is based upon that right view. So it's based upon an attunement with Dhamma and a freedom from influence by self-centered perceptions and self-view. So when we sit down to meditate, we might think, well, I want to get concentrated, I want to relax my body, I want to be peaceful, I want to develop insight, I want to be happy and peaceful, I want to get rid of my chattering thoughts, I want to get rid of my habits of fearfulness and jealousy and restlessness, and when I've got rid of my bad habits and I've become concentrated and had a bit of insight, then things will be great. And that can sound very easily like the contents of 95% of every Dhamma talk you've ever heard. and it's true. But what is being said there is that I want to get concentrated, I want to develop some insight, I need to get rid of my chattering thoughts, I need to get over my jealousy and fear problems, and I need to get rid of this and become that. So that language is a clue as to the way that those processes are being held and maintained. So over and over again, the point is that when we are practicing based on self-view, I'm an imperfect person, I've got to get rid of these problems, I've got to get these good qualities and become enlightened in the future. As long as that I and me and mine is woven all the way through that, then if you start off with wrong view, if you start off with self-centered thinking, you start off with self-view, with ignorance, then the result is necessarily dukkha, the desire to become bhavatanha, the desire to get rid of vibhavatanha. These are direct causes of dukkha. And so in terms of meditation and developing spiritual life, these two qualities, bhavatanha and vibhavatanha, it's most essential to get to know those directly, because they disguise themselves as being right practice. They disguise themselves as the stuff we're supposed to be doing, what we're all here for. And so because they're very good at those disguises, we end up putting huge amounts of very sincere effort in sort of driving down the wrong street. And it doesn't lead us to anywhere helpful. It's like that guy a few years ago who went around the I don't know how long it was. He was trying to drive home to Liverpool from London, and he got caught on the M25, and he did about 5 laps of the M25, which is about 1,000 miles. There's 200 miles around the M25. He did about 5 laps and couldn't work out why he hadn't got to Liverpool yet. And the poor guy was really sort of glassy-eyed and legless, and he obviously had to stop to refill with petrol along the way, but on the wrong road, diligently and carefully driving on the wrong road, literally going round and round in circles. So let's not do that. And so understanding right effort then is crucial to counteracting the habits of getting caught in bhavatanha and vibhavatanha. So right effort, Ajahn Sucitto sort of summarizes them here without giving the Pali words for the 4 sections. So the 4 elements of right effort are samvara is the first one, which is restraint, and that's restraining the unwholesome from arising. So that's setting the intention of, okay, let's try to get through today without getting angry. Let's restrain my habits towards fearfulness and worry. So restraining the unwholesome from arising, so that the effort to not think or act or steer the mind in the direction of anything unwholesome. So samvara is restraining. Pahana is the next one, which is to let go. Pahanati is to let go. Like in the second noble truth, pahatabanti is the way that we handle the second noble truth. Pahanati is to let go of. So to restraining is the first, letting go is the second. So if anything unwholesome has arisen, if that angry impulse has arisen, if there is that jealous feeling or that sensations of worry and physical tension, if they have already arisen, if they have arrived and they're already in action, you're in the middle of telling a lie, then pahana, let go. You don't have to continue the lie. You don't have to feed the impulse of anger or fear or jealousy, or whatever it might be, that we can, in seeing that the unwholesome has arrived already, it's in action. Pahanati is to let go. That's the appropriate response. So that's how we work with the unwholesome, with the unskillful. And then the third factor is bhavana, which is development. So consciously bringing into being the wholesome, to develop the wholesome, to establish an attitude of loving kindness, to keep to the precepts, to establish wholesomeness and balance in your conduct, in your speech, the effort to concentrate the mind, to bring the mind to the present moment, the effort to be wakeful, to counteract laziness and dullness, and to wake up and to be alert, to be wise. These are all bhavana, or the conscious development of the wholesome. So rousing those up, I need to, let's develop more in the way of loving kindness, or there needs to be more wakefulness, or there's a need to be more energetic here. So bhavana is the conscious development of the wholesome. And then the last one, the fourth one, is anurakana. Rakati means to protect. So anurakana, it means to hold or protect, to cherish. So whatever wholesome and noble and beautiful qualities have already arisen, anurakana is to protect or to maintain, to sustain the wholesome that has already arisen. So if there is loving kindness, then we sustain it. If there is concentration, then there's the effort to sustain that. If there is brightness of mind and clarity, then there's the effort to sustain that. So these 4, samvara, pahana, bhavana, anurakana, restraining, letting go, cultivating and maintaining, these can all be developed without any kind of self-view involved in that. So that it's not me getting concentrated, me letting go of my chattering thoughts, me developing insight, but those efforts are made, those actions are brought about, but not being driven by self-view and ego-centered habits, either overtly or unconsciously, but rather what drives the effort. The engine of that effort is mindfulness and wisdom, satipanya, which is not personal. It's not based on self-view. So samma vayamo is crucial in terms of our practice. As in this teaching that also he quotes later on in this reading it's called it's in the Majjhima Nikaya called the Great 40, the Mahachattarisaka Sutta, the Great 40, and it's Sutta number 117 in the Majjhima, and it's talking about the development of the path, the supramundane qualities of the path. And so when right effort is fully developed, then what's happening is that those qualities are being brought into being. They are the wholesome is being developed, the unwholesome is being restrained or let go of, but that's completely in accordance with Dhamma. There's no self-view, and there's no I and me and mine involved in that. So the path is being developed, but it's not unconsciously feeding self-view. So this is a subtle but very central issue in terms of developing the practice, and it's difficult to in a way to get a feel for how it works, but it makes all the difference. And getting to know the contrast between what bhavatanha feels like, the desire to become, I've got to become, I've got to get rid of this to become that, what bhavatanha feels like, and what right effort feels like. And there's a tangible quality, there's almost like a texture or a felt sense of when there is the I, me and mine element presence, when there's that selfing, as you can call it, when that is present and when it is absent. And and so a lot of our practice and a lot of benefit can be gained from getting to know that very, very directly. Okay, this is me practicing to get something off in the future. That's what this feels like. This is me doing something. And then, and this is what right effort feels like. This is samma vayamo, it's like this. And then practice based on self-view feels like that. So you kind of line the two up side by side. And an example that I often give is to, because they do look very like each other, like our left hand and our right hand look identical in some ways, and they are identical, at least mine are, identical in some ways, but they're also opposites. And so just as the right effort, might be it's symbolized by the right hand, so just to keep the rights together, and then bhavatanha vibhavatanha is symbolized by the left. They look very like each other, but they're also opposite to each other. One is the cause of the problem, the other is the solution. This is the disease, this is the cure, but they look almost identical. It's kind of like homeopathic medicine. For those of you who are into homeopathy, but it's they're almost identical, but they're also opposite. And so, just in a sense, looking at saying, okay, now what's the difference between the two? Okay, the thumb's on a different side, okay, and the little ones are both in the middle. Okay, that's how they're different from each other. That you have to, in a sense, okay, look, this is like this is like this, and then lining the two up side by side and exploring that, then there's a direct appreciation of those as contrasting qualities. And my experience is that the more that we can clarify that and make that distinct, then the less we spend our time driving around the M25, not getting to Liverpool. Okay, so to continue. So this is another circle, one in which the interdependence of the links represents a process whereby wisdom is activated and regenerated. As with the other circles, the mandala interlinks in a cross weave as every single factor supports every other factor and is supported by it. So the symbol of a spoked wheel is also often used, and that right in the very center of the mandala you have the image of the wheel as well. In the picture, the Buddha is walking in the world. The image of the walking Buddha implies relationship with the world of events. The Buddha here has one hand raised in the mudra of spiritual protection or blessing. This is called the Abhaya mudra, the fearlessness gesture. The other hand is in the giving gesture, Dana mudra. When the two are seen together, they symbolize a relationship with the world which is calming and benevolent. This formalized image, most commonly found in Japan, is one of the many that express different spiritual values. So that's the, let's see, has the right hand up and the left hand down, I believe. Yeah, so in this image you have the right hand is up like that and the left hand is down. So that the image, as he says, has that particular kind of symbolism. It's also interesting that, according to legend, out of China and Japan, the very first Buddha image ever made, which was during the Buddha's lifetime, according to the Northern Buddhist tradition, was at the behest of King Udena, and who was a king in the Buddha's time of a little kingdom called Vamsa, and his capital city was Kosambi. And he became a devotee of the Buddha, and when the Buddha was going to go off and be away for 3 months, he asked permission for an image of the Buddha to be made, and so that then that image was apparently was crafted, and the reason why they know that this is the form that rupa was made in was because I think it was Xuanzang, the Chinese pilgrims, brought a copy of it back. There's a sandalwood rupa from Kosambi, and there was a copy he brought back to China that was very highly revered. So he wrote about it in his diaries from about 1300 years ago, and his book about his journey to India and his time there, and then he brought back that copy of that image to China, where I think it's probably still enshrined there. I'm not sure, but there's a book in the library called by a woman called Sally Hovey-Riggins about Xuanzang's journey to India and his journey back. It's a wonderful description. She follows his whole route from China through to India and then back again. And there's a photograph of this, of a copy of this rupa in that book. So highly recommended as a good read about that pilgrimage. Anyway, more detail. Right view is the view, the perspective, that arises from fully understanding the Four Noble Truths. That may be the first factor. It's also the last, since to understand the Four Truths requires the practice of the other 7 factors. So, the path is really 2 turns of the wheel. The first is the mundane, the 7 other factors without right view, and the second is the supramundane, the path factors with right view. Mundane understanding is that which preserves the dualistic model of reality, me and the world. Supramundanes sees things holistically as the way it is. And as I said in that sutta, the Great 40, Majjhima 117, then the Buddha describes that there's you have the mundane eightfold path and the supramundane eightfold path, and the mundane right view. Even though Ajahn Sucitto says here that the first turn of the wheel is the 7 factors without right view, I'd say I would dispute that really, because it is right view, but sort of right view as an idea. Like, oh, this is the way I should be thinking, or this is a good idea to think in this way. So right view as a sort of a right or a accurate set of ideas. And then the second turn of the wheel is actually sort of right view as a genuine way of seeing things, like the vision has actually changed. So I would say that there is the establishment of right view in the mundane sense, but right view in terms of having your ideas in alignment with the ideas as explained by Dhamma. So the first turn of the wheel is like it would be based on self-view. Like, I'm developing right view, I'm practicing right intention, I'm practicing right speech, I'm practicing right action, right livelihood, right effort, and so on. That there's it's still an element of I and me and mine, me doing something. There's still an element of bhavatanna and vibhavatanna in that mundane development of the path. And then when that sort of comes around to its sort of fulfillment, and when those factors are all developed in the best way, then and with the shedding of self-view, then with right view well established and self-view has been dropped, then the second spin of the wheel is then with all those elements being established with based totally upon right effort and free of self-view and conceit. And in that sutta, there's this little refrain that you find the Buddha saying over and over again, which is that right effort, right view, right effort, and right mindfulness, they circle around and they support all the other factors. So it's rather like the insulation wrapping a cable. It's like that's what sort of wraps the cable and keeps it together and insulates it. Is samma sati, right mindfulness, right effort, samma vayamo, and right view, samadhi. Those three. So those three, right view, right effort, right mindfulness, are given a special place, a sort of special sort of emphasis in terms of the description of the Eightfold Path. That those three are what hold the rest together and really empower them. Mundane right intention, then, is the intention not to do harm in the world, to stimulate considerations of kindness, forgiveness, and service rather than vindictiveness, grudges, and selfishness. Right speech is speech which is honest, courteous, purposeful, and conducive to concord. Right action is harmlessness, trustworthiness, and sexual responsibility. Right livelihood is livelihood that brings no ill effects to the lives of other beings. Right effort is the training to avoid or abandon unwholesome states of mind and to cultivate and maintain wholesome states of mind. Right mindfulness is a particular kind of mental attention and recollection that can be best activated through meditation exercises and then develop as a general state of awareness in daily life. The Buddha said that it can be founded upon the body, so that's the first foundation of mindfulness is kaya-anupassana, mindfulness of the body, being attentive to breathing in and breathing out, walking, stretching, standing, lying down. Physical and mental feelings, Vedana-anupassana, is the second of the foundations of mindfulness. Then the third one, Citta-anupassana, the general state of mind, whether it's moody, depressed, relaxed, or elated, for example. Or, lastly, through awareness of mind objects, Dhamma-anupassana, thoughts, energies, doubts, joy, an innumerable array. This last foundation is called Dhamma when those mental objects are seen, observed, and responded to with mindfulness and objectivity. Thus they are understood as phenomena in the universe as the way it is, rather than brooded over or delighted in as aspects of oneself. Other key features of mindfulness are that it does not require a high degree of tranquility. Working readily on the ordinary level of consciousness, and that its tone is equanimous. Mindfulness is the kind of attention that sees phenomena arising and ceasing. Its focus is on the change and variability of experience. This is what makes mindfulness such a transformative practice. When the phenomena that we take as our self, quote unquote, are experienced as something passing through consciousness, what happens to the sense of identity? A couple of things to bring up there in that section. Again, along with zooming through the Eightfold Path, when speaking about the four foundations of mindfulness, on one occasion the Buddha said, I could start speaking now, and I could continue to speak about the four foundations of mindfulness, pausing only to eat and to answer the calls of nature and to sleep. And even until you had to carry me around on a stretcher, in many decades' time, I would still not exhaust the number of things that can be said about the four foundations of mindfulness. So again, it's a very long subject, and if we manage to get through the first three suttas by the end of March, then I'll pick up on that. But So speaking about samasati, right mindfulness, a couple of the elements of the four foundations of mindfulness, cittanupassana, the third one, this is very much a focus of the sort of forest tradition teachings, particularly Lumpur Cha, Lumpur Sameto, and that what's very significant, it's a short section of the sutta. It's not particularly extensive, but what it's pointing to is that peacefulness or mindfulness is independent of the object of mindfulness. So, and it's quite striking when you read that section of the sutta, how when it reads saying such as mindfully one knows the expanded mind is expanded and the contracted mind is contracted. One knows the agitated mind is agitated and the unagitated mind is unagitated. One knows the mind filled with anger is filled with anger, the mind free of anger is being free of anger. One knows the mind filled with greed is filled with greed, the mind free from greed is free from greed, and so on. There's like 16 different pairs, I believe, that is there, that he enumerates. And so what's really striking, or one of the things that's striking, is that there's no value judgment in that at all. He doesn't actually peg out that the anger is unwholesome and freedom from anger is wholesome. He just says that the two are the two poles are considered or are regarded with the same eye. They're seen as of equal value. So the mind that knows agitation is the same as the mind that knows freedom from agitation. The mind that knows anger is the same as the mind that is knowing freedom from anger. And so that there's a pointing to the fact that if there is genuine cittanupassana, that observing and knowing investigation of moods is well founded, then that kind of clarity, the clarity of mindfulness, is what brings the quality of balance there. It brings things into balance, because in a way there's mindfully knowing, oh, this is the feeling of anger. Then the faculty of intuitive wisdom says, oh, anger is not something that's good to follow. This will lead to pain for myself and others, therefore don't follow it. But at the moment of establishing mindfulness, there's no value judgment. There's no regarding it as negative. It's just knowing this is the feeling of anger, this is freedom from anger, this is the busy mind, this is the mind that's quiet. And so that's a very significant element of practice. And also, particularly when we get the message, which one does in many different meditational circles, that it's you can't practice out in the world, or it's impossible to practice at work, or it's so difficult practicing in the midst of the family, and I need to go on retreat, I need to come to the monastery, I need to be away from all this noise and activity in order to be peaceful. And from the Buddha's teaching here, and also in other places where he points out these same qualities, that and this is a strong theme of Lumpur Cha's teaching as well, is that you can be mindful anywhere. It's a matter of recollecting, a matter of remembering to remember, a matter of remembering to be mindful. And so you can be mindful of a busy job, you can be mindful of driving on the M25, you can be mindful of working in the kitchen at Amaravati, you can be, just as you can be mindful of walking around the field silently by yourself, mindful of listening to a Dhamma teaching. So that the cittanupassana is extremely helpful in helping us to see that peace does not lie in the object of experience. Peace lies entirely in the attitude that there is towards it. That's what that points to. And so that when there is, even if there's a huge amount of noise and activity going on, you can be completely peaceful. You can be silent inside in the midst of a lot of noise. You can be still inside in the midst of activity. And that doesn't mean still as in you freeze in your spot, but you can be still inside even while you're in the midst of activity and joining in with other people and doing what is necessary. So this cittanupassana, mindfulness of moods, is an extremely significant element. Also, in the last foundation, there's long-standing debates over many centuries about. It's called Dhamma. So the debate is often focusing around: is that Dhamma with a big D, as in Dhamma, as in the ultimate reality of things, or is that Dhamma with a small d, which means mental object? So is it Dhamma Anupassana or Dhamma Anupassana? Which one is it referring to? And in some respects, it's hard to read the emphasis from the Satipatthana Sutta, but if you look at the Anapanasati Sutta, the Discourse on Mindfulness of Breathing, which is also built around the four foundations of mindfulness, when the Buddha speaks about developing mindfulness of breathing around the fourth foundation, it's all to do with the development of wisdom. It's through the contemplation of anicca, so that knowing the in-breath arising, and knowing the changing quality of the in-breath, the changing quality of the out-breath, the changing quality of both the in-breath and the out-breath. And so that it points to in a way that it's the fourth foundation is more to do with the development of wisdom, the insight into change. So seeing mind states and seeing all experience with the eye of Dhamma, or seeing it in terms of wisdom. So, because otherwise it can seem like, well, how is if Dhammanupassana is just about mind objects, how is that different from Cittanupassana? There doesn't seem to be much distinction between them. But if you see the fourth one as more in terms of a deliberate contemplation, in terms of change, of looking at the process of experience rather than the content of experience, then it makes a bit more sense. So I would suggest that's the most helpful way in terms of understanding sammasati, right mindfulness, that fourth foundation is based around the conscious development of wisdom. Right concentration, or collectedness, results from right mindfulness. When the mind sustains attention on the changing nature of things, just on that edge, it is not being drawn into judgments about experience. Things are just as they are. This means that the mind is not being stirred up by desires, fears, or restlessness, and in that serenity, it begins to be aware of its own reflective quality. The mind, as an experience of consciousness, has certain qualities. One is that it knows. It is sensitive. The other is that it has a wide range of focus, moving from a pinpoint on your body to philosophical speculations to poignant memories in a matter of moments. We all recognize these aspects, but normally the attention of the mind is limited to objects that bring up interest or aversion. When we no longer linger upon them, the mind is freed from the limitations of those objects and the habitual pattern of moods and reactions that accompany them. The knowingness becomes a clear sensitivity, and the range becomes boundless. This is quite delightful, and so certain attachments are inevitable unless concentration is linked to right view. It's here that the wholeness of the Eightfold Path becomes such an important teaching. Mindfulness will help to undercut the attachment to the delights of these meditative highs, because the nature of mindfulness is non-absorptive, and it notices that highs also come and go. Then the less elevated aspects of the path, the ethical training, are of further significance. They encourage a fine sense of discernment with regards to the conventions of human life. Dispassionate discernment, rather than absorption, is the tool of insight. If we are to respond to life as it happens with its instabilities and vicissitudes, we cannot remain absorbed in anything for too long. So these are helpful comments about the development of right concentration, and one of the dangers of the mind getting very absorbed and developing the qualities of extreme focus is very, very blissful, but that blissfulness and that delight can be obstructive to the quality of reflection, so that, as he points out, that the changing nature of that experience, the highs that they come and go, is something that can be invisible to us or not apparent when the mind is absorbed in the "whoa, this is great" feeling of the mind in a blissful and super so highly focused state. So that in a development of the path, in Samma Samadhi, which is the last of the Eightfold Path, that there's an encouragement also in some of the teachings where the Buddha points out that there's even as the mind gets more and more absorbed, right up until almost the highest levels of absorption possible, the mind can still reflect, saying, "Oh, this is blissful, this is delightful, but this is also a dependently arisen state. This is something that's come into being, it's changing, it's dependent and thus gross. But there is also there is the liberation from all attachment." And in one particular teaching, he points out that you can sustain that reflection right up until sort of the level of arupa jhana, the formless states of absorption. But the last of those states, which is called the jhana of neither perception nor non-perception, and then the one beyond that, which is called the cessation of perception and feeling, he says those mind states they're too refined. You can't form even a reflective thought in those states. So they're too refined for even that thought. This is dependent. That can't form there. So that the light is so bright, and the mind is so hyper focused that it's impossible to reflect at that level of absorption. But right up until the previous levels of the other arupa jhanas of infinite space, infinite consciousness, and so on, it's still possible to reflect and to consider. Well, this is the experience of infinite space or no thingness, but this is still conditioned and gross, and there is there is the way beyond this. The dilemma that everyone who experiences or inclines towards meditation has to resolve is, how do I keep this sense of concentration going in my daily life? The simple answer is by concentrating more completely on whatever one is doing. However, this is not always a realistic answer. As anyone knows, living with telephones, business schedules, and other human beings knows, things often happen too quickly. Nor is the answer just about getting away from all that. The Buddha made a point of expounding a universal teaching, not one for hermits alone. A more complete answer lies in the second turning of the wheel, the supramundane path, or life lived beyond self. The supramundane path begins with right view, which results from getting beyond the compulsions of desire through living according to ethical standards and training the mind to notice its own nature. A stillness is perceivable when the movement of mind objects no longer captures the focus of attention. This stillness may amount to the first taste of nibbana, and has its effects on the intentions and motivations of one's life. You want to get back to that stillness, so you want to cultivate the ways that lead to freedom from the demands of the identity. You want to give up selfness in body, speech, and mind. The other factors of the path are configurations on this theme. What is it that wants to manipulate people or impress others? What is it that wants to possess things and have its own way? Does that lead to permanent contentment or not? Is it comparable to the boundless ease of the mind at rest? Cultivation of the supramundane always looks at the dukkha of desire for things in terms of self. The result is an increase in personal modesty, gentleness, and tolerance of others. This is a very realistic path, not a belief. You have to see it for yourself, what is really preferable. But most people have never found the possibility to test the nibbana option. So some assessment of life lived under the normal set of assumptions has to take place. You have to know suffering for yourself and come to the fourth truth through the other three. There are no shortcuts. So in that Ajahn Sucitto is outlining that what I've been describing about the supramundane side of the path, the development of the path free from conceit and self-view, and that in a way that recognition of stillness, or that quality of profound serenity that is there when the mind is free of all self-constructions or conceit or identifications, and that when we talk about dukkha nirodha, and we'll get onto that in a later chapter, that cessation of dukkha and the flavor of that is the flavor of nibbana itself, that quality of peacefulness that's a radiant and bright, vital quality. So it's very energetic, but it's also completely peaceful at the same time. So speaking about more about practicing in daily life, this is a very perennially common theme, perennially asked about on retreats and when people come to visit. But it's the response, as I was saying before, is that one brings mindfulness to what's going on. And so Ajahn Chah, when people would come and say, "Oh, Luang Por, I'm so busy with my home, and I got so much work to do, and it's so kind of noisy and active," and he said, "Well, just meditate on activity." And he said, "Well, if it's noisy, then you meditate on noise. If it's busy, then you meditate on busyness. That's what you make your object. Don't think that the noise and the activity and the busyness is in the way. It's not in the way, it is the way, as they say." And that was an extraordinarily common theme, because obviously the monastery is there, and the monastery is a more quiet and peaceful, serene place, but and that does obviously have its purpose to support physical seclusion. But what Luang Por Chah was trying to do, and Luang Por Sumedho similarly, over and over again for decades, was to say, yes, this is a peaceful place, and yes, you can do retreats here, and yes, people are very well behaved and kind here, but that doesn't mean that you can't be peaceful in your own home. It doesn't mean that you can't find wisdom and peace in the workplace or on the road or with the family. It doesn't preclude that, but more the monastery gives you an environment where you can develop the skills, where then you can take it back into your home, back into the workplace, and you are able to apply those skills in a more active or busy environment. As has been noted by Ajahn Sucitto, this way is not the pretty route. It requires a good amount of personal motivation, but there are some encouragements. This teaching, the Dhamma, is part of that. The fellowship of those who practice the Dhamma, the Sangha, is a great help. And there is the Buddha. The Buddha was a remarkable person. In some ways it seems only natural that, having realized the fullness of Nibbana, all the compassion that a boundless mind is capable of could manifest through him. But that he was also able to devise a system, to formulate a teaching beyond systems and words, and then to tirelessly propound many variations around this theme of suffering and the cessation of it, is quite extraordinary. The Buddha's own life was spent walking through the forests, villages and cities of what is now Bihar and Uttar Pradesh in northern India, teaching and being available as a reference and example for many people. He never spoke or acted in any way other than the way of Dhamma. Thus he became a living icon of the teaching. He himself said that whoever saw the Buddha saw the Dhamma. That's in the teaching to Vakali. Conversely, he remarked that the death of his body should not pose a problem for anyone, because the Dhamma Vinaya would be alive to support the practice as long as people wanted it. In my own practice, I like to think of Buddha in terms of the ways in which I apply the teachings. When I apply myself rightly, there is a calm and benevolent presence. And when I see Buddha images and reflect on the gestures they make, sitting, standing, walking or lying down, they help me to recollect the humanity of the path. I am left feeling a deep sense of gratitude, respect and joy. For those who wish to be trained, the Buddha is still an available presence today. How many other people do we carry around in our minds without even wanting to? There's plenty of room there for the Buddha. And the Buddha always encourages us to practice for the realization of unconditioned happiness. This path is a whole way of living. It's not a little time that you carve out of a busy day. Nor is it a matter of going somewhere for a day or a year until you get it. That's still the habit of self and desire. The prefix samma implies a kind of completeness in which one is giving oneself without bias or expectation of gain. It's the spirit of entering into things for their own sake, to see them as they actually are, not as the habitual designations by which we value them. Another way of looking at the Eightfold Path is as a state of communion. At its mundane level, it's wholesome. At its supramundane, it is holistic. And as such, it is the experience of consummation in a gentle and selfless life. That's why the true spiritual life is called the holy life. Holy and holistic are related to each other in terms of language. Another reflection on what is right, quote unquote, is that it is real for each individual, not just an ideal. It is the variable level of what we can sincerely commit ourselves to. If we cling to it as an ideal of what we should be, it's not right. There's not much point in making it into something to be done only for an hour or so while we have enough willpower. The path should be something we can actually live and work with. As long as we give ourselves to it fully, then that level will always rise to complete fulfillment. But the here and now of it is that we cultivate the path in a way that allows us to appreciate and respect our efforts and to have enough confidence to continue. Then the path begins to cultivate itself. This sets the tone for what is right, quote unquote, and gives each one of us a sense of rightness or balance. Then we know without elation or dejection what has been cultivated and where attachment still remains. We follow the examples of the teachers, but we also have the confidence to walk this path ourselves. That's the end of that chapter. I think the last thing to make a comment on, I think that's an extremely astute observation. We carry all sorts of other people around in our minds. Mom and Dad and our people, our friends in the holy life, people that we live with, the nuns, monks, lay people that live here at Amaravati, in your own homes, your children, your loved ones, your exes, and how many people we already carry around. Just that little thought, I think I've got room for the Buddha as well. I've got this whole other menagerie, this great zoo of people carting around with me everywhere I go, a whole busload. So I think we got room to bring to invite the Buddha there as well. That's the end of that chapter. If there's any questions or things to clarify, please speak up. Yes. Let's do it.
If you're intending to practice, for instance, metta, but without self-view, is there a way of conceiving the practice that will help that? A way of thinking about what you're doing that will help?
Just to say, may loving kindness be generated towards Martin and Alex, and
So just impersonal.
yeah, just to tweak the pronouns as a good start. Let there be the attitude of loving kindness towards all beings. It's a very I find when just by not using the I and just phrasing things differently, there's a kind of shift even on a very simple level. You can get obsessive about it, like this one refuses to use pronouns, or personal pronouns are not used here, and so you can get really annoying about it. I've often told the story about this guy who used to go to the Buddhist summer school, who always referred to himself as it. He was very focused on the anatta teachings, so he always called himself it. It's feeling a little bit thirsty, it would like a cup of tea. I remember, it was years and years ago, back in the early 80s, Luang Por Sumedho took me along to the Buddhist Society summer school a couple of years. I think 80 and 81 I went with him. and we met this couple, and I think Lumpur was the one who remarked. He sort of leant over and said, "I think she's a bodhisattva," like speaking about his wife. Had to live with this guy who was always being it. He was very impressed how she was ready to go along with her beloved's foibles, but you could see there was a certain amount of eye rolling and so we can take, like anything, you can take principles that are wholesome and pick them up in the wrong way. Venerable, Dhamma Vijaya.
I have a similar question. Are there any telltale signs that I use wrong effort in my meditations? You just said, if I use pronouns or so, I say, okay, now I want to do it, I really want to calm my mind, and then it's clear that something I can see, I'm thinking about. But is there something like when I get frequently bored or restlessness, some hints that I'm using self-view and going in the wrong direction?
Just to use the mindfulness faculty to ask, well, what's happening here? What's being held on to? What's being assumed here? Just to explore, like using the reflective faculty. Is anything being assumed here? Is something being held on to here? Is something being desired here? What's happening here? And also, a good way of working with it is if you find the mind in the middle of that selfing habit, like I shouldn't be so lazy, I should get concentrated, then you kind of sort of catch yourself in mid-should, so that you hear the mind thinking in those kind of terms and that caught up in that attitude. So when you notice that, just in that moment to say, okay, now how does this feel? What's the sensations in the body that go along with this I should feeling? What's this like? And obviously it takes a bit of mindfulness to sort of catch it and look, but it can be very revealing because there's this. Everyone's different, and we don't always work in the same way. But often when that is caught and looked at, and the mind is seen to be doing this, I should, and I must, and I don't want. There's this kind of tension or agitation in the body, the way that the body's holding itself, and then just without trying to do anything to that or with it, just to sustain the attention on that feeling of should, like in a way it's helpful to at first don't do anything with it, just let that be felt. That I should, and to let that be known fully and completely. And the more that is fully known, the more there's this intuitive sense of, oh, this is really hard work. Like, why do I do this to myself? And it's like there's recognition of, oh, this is something that's being done, and it's tense, it's stressful, and so then without sort of you having to do anything, then just by fully recognizing that the stressing quality of that, then you find just by holding it, then the whole system starts to relax, because it's too much of a pointless burden to carry it around. Because you see that you're hanging on to this thing. Oh, this is really... I'm getting really agitated here. I'm feeling really tense. I'm tense. Why am I holding this thing? Oh. Why did I even pick it up? Okay. Oh, that's better. And this... one of the things that Lumpur Sumedha used to do when he was in his kuti, when he was a novice back in Nongkai, and he was trying to get, he had this one book, The Word of the Buddha, that I was going through with the Anagarikas and novices, that he read about 80 times during the course of that year, and it was really clear to him that clinging and letting go was the center of the whole issue. And so then he said, I got this he's a real doubter. Lumpur Sumedha is a real world-class doubter. So he keeps saying, let go. How do you let go? How do you let go? What do you do to let go? and then he I think he picked up something like a matchbox or a candle, and he said, okay, now I'm clinging. Okay, this is clinging. Now what's letting go? And then, it's just relaxing the grip. It's not even like throwing it away. It's just letting go. It's just, and then just putting it down. That's what it is. So he really, at least the way he's told the story many times, it was through that like physical exercise of, okay, clinging with the body equals this. This is when it says upadana, clinging. Okay, this is what it's like to cling. Okay, yes, this is dukkha, right? Then to let go, you don't even have to drop it. You don't have to throw it away. You don't have to destroy it. It's just loosening the grip. So he used the felt sense of letting go like a muscular sense of relaxing the grip, to then clue him into, okay, now how does that feel on the mental level? What's the grasping like, and what's the letting go like internally? If that's what grasping is on the physical level, and then that's letting go on the physical level, now how is that internally on the mental level? So he used those very tangible examples of getting a feeling for what letting go was about. And so then, if you find yourself caught in that kind of I should state, in that same way, okay, how does this feel in the body? And then relaxing the body. And, okay, now what's happened? Now I've relaxed the body. Now what's happened to that should? What's happened to the I feeling and the should feeling? What's gone? What's changed? How is that? And so then you're directly exploring those qualities. So it's not an idea, but it's more like a felt sense. Is that?
Yeah, thank you.